Hey, it's me, Big P, getting geared up for the Necropolis League for Path of Exile. I thought I'd do a quick video going over basically the steps I take on poe.ninja to kind of get inspiration for new builds, or really just see how a build that I think would be interesting has been done before. If you're not familiar with poe.ninja, I would definitely watch this video to get an idea of what you're looking for and how to look for it specifically for pretty much any build. I mean, it has to be an existing build, but you would think that you'd want a build that exists and has been proven to be somewhat viable, getting up into the high 90s by this point of the league. But I'll show you a couple tips to kind of sift through some things at this point in the league, really at the end of the league. There's a lot of weird stuff you might want to look out for. So, you know, while you definitely can pull just a POB from poe.ninja, I kind of wanted to go over how I pull in for inspiration or just get some ideas for like kind of build concepts that I've been knocking around in my head, and just go through the search. This might seem like a very obvious video to some, and it really kind of is. But, you know, if you're a little like me and you're too stupid or scared to try new stuff, right from the get-go, I used to be a little braver. Now that we're dealing with stuff like tier 17 maps and like reworked new Uber bosses and stuff like that, I want something strong, I want something more consistent. And let's face it, we're not going to get the MF high that we did in Affliction last league. So I wanted to put a well-rounded build together. So that's kind of how I came to the idea for what I wanted to try. I wanted to try Crackling Lance as a totem build, built more for a bosser. I have used Crackling Lance several times as a league starter to great success. It's gotten me my own 2 watchstones within the first weekend pretty consistently. But there's the new Crackling Lance, and let's actually search it up right now so that you can take a look. Crackling Lance of Disintegration. If you can read that right there. Basically the difference between this and the normal Crackling Lance. Normal Crackling Lance has built-in intensity stacks, which is basically a self-cast only mechanic. So a big part of the scaling of the original gem was you had to self-cast, and that's what I did most of the time, paired with Orb of Storms, use like a staff as an Inquisitor. It was great. I have those videos on the channel if you want to see that. Probably still a great league starter. However, I want something that's going to be a little bit more defensive, at least in the playstyle, and we can now do it in totems, since Crackling Lance of Disintegration does not have anything. It just has maximum chance to shock and maximum effective shock. As well as the effectiveness of added damage is much higher than the base gem. So basically we're going to have a couple different ways we can scale, but you know, this is just to go over the gem. Don't look at this. This is a energy blade. This is probably Crackling Lance of Disintegration actually ended up being the skill that I procced in my cast on crit. I did a similar build to this, probably not as crazy as this, with stuff like the Great Wolf and the Calandra's Touch with this shit. Yeah, like that stuff's cool. But that's what's fun about checking builds late in the game on poe.ninjas. You can kind of see the ceiling and then maybe kind of build up and see where you would want to go and where you'd want to try. So let's get a little bit more into it. Now, in terms of Crackling Lance, you see heiro is actually pretty high up here. So for Crackling Lance of Disintegration, and I'm going to go ahead and make it so that only the totem builds are filtered here now. So you actually have a pretty short list here. So this isn't like a super meta build, but that's actually a good thing. So let's go into just a couple here. So all I basically searched for was, I knew I wanted to play heiro, I knew I wanted to play Crackling Lance, and I wanted to have it in a totem setup. I think it's going to be really nice to be able to drop multiple of them. It's going to be shooting lasers all over the place, just like Divine Ire totems, kind of like that, but without the charge up. You can just scale cast speed and they'll just shoot them as fast as you can cast them, or the totem can cast them. Let's go into each build we have here. Just I guess let's sort by DPS. Let's go from low to high DPS so we can start to see. Now, first off, DPS numbers here are estimations. Don't go based on this. Basically just look at this for inspiration. I saw this one. This was kind of interesting to me because it has 2 skills here, and actually, if you can see by the difference in DPS, with Crackling Lance doing 131k but Lightning Conduit doing 1.4 million, this is actually more of a Lightning Conduit build than a Crackling Lance build. So it's important to look at the gear and really the skills when it comes to stuff like this. and DPS numbers. You know, obviously it probably works better. This is a mage blood build, so the player probably knows what they're doing. And then, you know, some stuff like that which was taken, you can't copy one-to-one, certainly not the charms in the upcoming league, but it's a good way to see an idea of what you can do. I'm probably not going to do this. The entire point of running a totem build for me is that I don't really have to cast stuff. It is worth noting that this is the only one that doesn't take Ancestral Bond. It's not really a totem build. It's more using the totems as a trigger to cast a shock, but it's cool to see. And it's, you know, an option I didn't really see. So you have the lightning conduit here. It's with like Archmage and stuff. This might actually be really good going into the next league, because they buffed mana stuff a bit. So this has 10k mana, but this isn't exactly what we're going to do. But you can kind of see this, the setup here. See, with overcharge, you'll actually see that in a couple different builds here, because it is a very powerful lightning based skill gem. And then you can see things like this pretty basic mana stuff like the foible, and then some, you know, really high end. But a really cool thing up here is where my face is blocking is back here. You can see a snapshot. Let me drag my face down so you can see more, in case you're not familiar with Path of Ninja, PoE Ninja. You can go down, sometimes it misses snapshots. I think it's because like people don't log in or something. So you can actually see what they started with before the Mage Blood. This was all probably, they got the gear together to build for it as a mana base. It's kind of hard to get the gear together from a straightforward league start perspective. So I might, mana might also be, some mana uniques and items might be kind of up on in high demand this coming league, so I might not look into this so much. It's cool to see though. So let's go to the next character. You do have to change the snapshot, of course. Let's take a look. Okay, and so here we have something that's probably closer to what I would actually be doing. Let's take a look. Maybe not the flasks and whatever here. These look a little odd to me, but long story short, Annihilating Light is its sort of staff. Let's see if they started with they level it as a totem build from the get-go. So this was like a Summon Holy Relic build with like all sorts of stuff. Started as a minion build, actually as a guardian, and then they respect somewhere down the line here. So you can kind of see the growth of a character. Maybe you wouldn't really follow this. Again, you can pull, if it's a known build creator or the build looks solid to you, feel free to pull it directly. But for here, I'm really just going to look at skill gems potentially. So here we have like Arcanus brand setups where they have multiple curses. It's probably because they have Anathema, where your curse limit is equal to your maximum power charges. On Heiro, that's going to be pretty cool. He's got 5 power charges, so he has 5 curses. Probably go way higher. But as far as links for Crackling Lance of Disintegration, that's really, this is a totem build. You can tell because it has the 6-link spider silk robe, so it's actually really a 7-link spell totems built into that. Probably going to be at least the first chest I dump a bunch of fusings into to kind of get the 6th link and then just have it good to go. That's my body armor for my totem build and for my starter build. So multiple totems is going to just make more totems, going to shoot more lasers, going to help the coverage, because the Crackling Lance of Disintegration, if you haven't seen it, it's a very tight, it's a narrow, it's going to be auto aiming, so it's going to be great. You know, it's going to aim better than you ever could. Totems have, you know, aim bots, and that's really kind of the strength of totems as a playstyle. One of the few reasons you'd actually use it. Between that and the fact that you place it over here and it shoots across the screen, it's going to work great for Crackling Lance. It's probably what people are actually doing this. And then you just scale crit here, crit damage and crit strikes. You can probably drop this for, I think I saw people using Awakened LE Focus, as well as Awakened added Lightning here. Conk effect is just kind of like you can get away with a lot extra damage here. It doesn't really matter in terms of AoE. It's not really a clear skill. You don't really have to worry about it because the totems, you'll have multiple totems shooting as fast as they can. Coverage shouldn't really be an issue, but you know, I'll have to see. And then you see a couple of auras. See, like, I'm not sure what the Herald of Ash is doing here. And Verity's Veil on here in the right slot is giving them hexproof, which is nice because Soul Mantle will be cursing you. And I think there's a couple ways you can get around that. 2 Kikazarus early is probably going to be the best way to do. And then another nice thing about playing an off-meta skill is things like Replica Dragon Fang's Flight. They were probably able to snipe this for a decent price. It probably was still pretty expensive, and certainly not something you're getting like first weekend for anything under like a dozen div. Maybe not a dozen div, but like a couple div. It's going to be expensive, but it should come down, and you should be able to get one of these. Probably a very solid kind of unique to aim for that can probably be evergreen. And if you don't want to go Annihilating Light, which you might not want to, definitely makes the build a lot squishier, and defenses are probably going to be a little shaky on this build, unless you're doing a couple other things. You're going to have to layer some defenses besides the ultimate defense of being a totem build and being able to move while damaging stuff. That takes, precedence over any sort of defensive layer you could build here, but it all helps. And then you have just, these are basic boots, pretty nice implicits there, and then cast on Death Portal. Probably not going to be the sort of well-rounded build here that I would follow 1-to-1, but it is cool to see Replica Dragon's Fang and then Viridi's Veil, and then it also kind of locks in your chest piece here. So let's go on to the next one and see what's up. I guess I didn't really go over the other gems because they weren't really doing something very consistent. Here's another one, probably on a higher investment level, I would say. Almost definitely. Like, what the hell even is this? This is that crazy shit. Like, you will never get this ring, so don't even bother. And then they do have a Kikazaru that's double corrupted. Very nice one. Not to mention an Ashes, a replica Heat Shiver. That's actually really interesting. See, that's something that you might be able to snipe that people might not really be interested in. 1% of lightning damage is extra cold damage per shock effect on enemies. So, as far as I know, considering the shock effect of, where is it? Crackling Lance. Crackling Lance, that's probably a really good one. But check again here. So, this is a cool thing to peep because Ball Lightning of Static Totems was actually definitely the totems you'd want to do. You wouldn't even consider Crackling Lance as a totem skill because this existed. Ball Lightning of Static Totems were super OP, but long story short, I think they nerfed it to the point where you can't use them as totems. So that interaction is gone and this build is pretty much dead, but you'll be using the Crackling Lance instead. What they were doing here is with Overcharge and Enhance, they were making it so that they would just get a really high shock effect so that you can use that Heat Shiver. Now, I probably wouldn't use Overcharge in the main links of your damage links because it is 25% less damage. But as a utility links, I think you'll see in another build or two, they do use just a separate setup to shock them and then another one to just do the damage, which might seem a little clunky. I might give it a try myself, but here you can see this is a Dialis setup, so you're gonna have like specific interactions where you're like boosting the level of the Empower and the Enhance here. So this would probably be a more late game setup. Let's see if we can see an earlier one. Nope, they pretty much got the gear together by week 5 and you still have a Mage Blood then. So a lot of the times when you do see these sort of end game builds, it's not really something you can see from day one. But if you're a little bit slower in your progression, you can watch the league as it progresses and come here to kind of, tweak your gems and skill setups or find a new unique or something that people are trying to take advantage of and things like that. I won't linger on this one too much. It is kind of more of the same, really high level investment here, and as well as kind of squishy. Not running a cast on Death Portal, but that's probably because they have a Mage Blood. They're probably doing just fine. But as far as, so we didn't really get much info for what our build would be doing. Here we go. This would probably be the one I'm going to be following the most closely. I think this one kind of nailed it. It's doing things like Coward's Legacy to get Pain Attunement, just making you cursed by vulnerability, but you're hexproof. I actually don't really know how that works. I guess you are cursed, but then you're immune to the effects of the curse, so it still counts, but you don't take any of the downsides. Vulnerability is a terrible curse that you definitely don't want. As well as Windscream, giving an additional curse here. Let's see what they're doing. They got like a Spectre setup with Minion Life, Animate Guardian. They probably got some cool shit going on here. I'm not sure if I'd really do this. This would probably be my flex slots that I might go into, like Cast on Death Portal, or maybe an additional Aura or two if I can fit it in. But Minion Life and Specters, there's usually some cool Specters, and the new Necropolis League certainly might be one that gives us some cool shit. You're using a blessing here. Eternal blessing is kind of cool. Are they mind over matter? Like, actually? I'm actually not sure. It's hard to say. Let's see. Haste, yeah, they're not really using much in terms of auras. So the scaling is coming solely from the wand, which is a pretty nice one. Not insane. Pretty, you know, it's got flat lightning damage, lightning, crit chance, and lightning spell. This was probably a harvest roll. Considering the lightning resistance is there, it's probably a weighted roll to roll lightning shit. And then they re-rolled lightning, stuff like that. Crafting in the new league is going to be all up in the air, so, you know, throw out those old crafting guides. You might need to get some new ones. Shield has +1 totems. That's definitely something you're going to want to look for. And then again, the Viridi's Veil to kind of get around the hex here, the Coward's Legacy. Mark of the Shaper is kind of interesting, because that is a Shaper. Oh, it's Shaper and Elder. So because it's a Shaper and Elder influence, you get both of those. That's interesting. So cannot be stunned by spells is okay, I guess, but really 96 increased spell damage. And then, yeah, I guess that's a little weird to me. I feel like you could probably do better than this ring, but unless it has some sort of interaction, I'm not really understanding. Yeah. And then this is, so again, this would probably be, I don't know how the hell you craft something like this, but that's close to perfect in terms of exactly what you'd want. Additional curse, life, and then +2 to your lightning gems, and then +1 to all your skill gems. That's crazy. As far as the gloves, yes, you get faster casting in here. Really? For your lightning golem and your specters? That's interesting. Interesting setup here. I'm not really... Because you needed the Shaper influence? Okay, maybe I won't be copying this one 1-to-1, but it is interesting to see. But yeah, really the core of the build is going to be a Soul Mantle. You can probably even get a +1 one eventually if I do end up investing into the build and it feels solid, at least as a boss, or it's not going to be the fastest mapper for sure. But definitely something I want to look into to get set up. It's probably a more consistent start than trying to start up a mapper. And let's just check the last one here. I think there's one or two more. Again, we get the replica Dragon's Fang, which is going to be really cool to snipe. I'm probably going to go this route, if not just because +3 is just going to be super solid. Decent ring, you know, this is definitely a more approachable level, I would say, in terms of just what you're actually going to be able to do. Added lightning, things like that. Like the skill gems seem pretty solid. As an Inquisitor, you probably wouldn't need to go the increased base crit, but the base crit on the skill gem is 6%. Not the best, but not the worst either. It's pretty doable, and then you do end up going probably because that's what Heiro can do with power charges and stuff like that. This one has multiple curses in the Arcanist brand. You probably don't need to go all the way up to 5 curses, but it definitely can add a lot of power to your builds. Things like Punishment, LA Weakness, Assassin's Mark for sure, Temp Chains, just a lot of utility and damage that you're getting from that curse setup. Just because if your Ancestral Bond, if you don't know, you cannot deal damage with your skills yourself. Only your totems can deal damage. So you can do utility stuff. But yeah. Here's another one with Arc in Meat Shield. That's interesting. Wonder what the Arc's for. A little weird. Okay, maybe we won't be copying 1-to-1 these builds. And then here we have a power charge stacking version. The new this is definitely one that you might consider, but you're actually gaining absorption charges instead of power charges here. I actually don't even know what absorption charges do. This might be a bit of a meme troll one, but no, it's using badge. I mean, it's using Malachi's Loop, it's using Relicash. Like, this is definitely like some sort of charge stacking where they have 12 frenzy and power charges. Maybe a little more difficult to put together, but certainly something I would consider as a respec. If a high investment is definitely something I would be looking into. For this build, however, I think my purposes, I'm going to basically look at the lower end here. So let's see if they leveled as something else. No, so this is actually kind of cool. You'll get to see, this is probably a more, this is why this is so helpful, the time machine function here in Path of poe.ninja. it's great. You'll be able to see what I would consider an early setup. So he was able to get on day 4 the replica heat shiver because A, heat shiver was nerfed, and B, it's kind of an off meta unique. Even as a replica, it's pretty cool. And then 2 singularities. These would probably be awesome starter uniques to go for. These are just a couple chaos, and they have a great cast speed roll and big flat lightning damage to spells. So if you can get hinder somewhere on the build too, I'm not sure, that would increase damage a lot. And then yeah, there's your 5-link Soul Mantle, but good thing about Soul Mantle is the 5-link early on is actually a 6-link. Yeah, this is seeming like a pretty solid build for me to start with. So this is probably something I'd pull more directly. I believe this was doing it at the time. Yeah, so there, this was, again, you gotta, the context of the league is important. They were using the Warden, where if you don't have sockets in here, or any gem socket in here, you get like move speed and whatever, and resistance and whatever the gloves did. That obviously you will fill in with whatever you want here, but it is cool to see that the build doesn't have a lot of socket pressure. It's, you know, kind of an off meta build that has a lot of flexibility, especially once you go Ancestral Bond. It's not like you're going to be doing a combo yourself. It's just going to be focused on the totems, and that's kind of why I want to do the build. So I am actually going to do a practice leveling run with the normal Crackling Lance, just because I do feel like you're going to be able to get an early version of Crackling Lance of Disintegration, unless some build creator that way bigger than me makes it blow up or something like that. I don't think it's any secret that it's pretty decent, but this is like the more like niche, like outside the box case that, you know, people might not have noticed. You know, it's sort of, it's not really a meta skill, but it's while these skills are having their transfigured gems like balanced and changed and stuff like that, it's a really fun time to sort of try new stuff. I would definitely recommend trying something new this league, but maybe something that where the core of the build is more consistent, because I do think with the new Uber bosses and tier 17 maps, definitely gonna be the sort of content you don't want to miss out, or at least want to try, and you might get kind of frustrated if your build isn't up to the task there. So I would recommend, normally I 9 times out of 10 start with something that would be considered a mapper. I would say this is probably the exception where I definitely want a bosser, especially considering the league mechanic might be throwing bosses at you randomly, weird shit. There's going to be just a lot of variables in your maps as we learn the new endgame systems as well. You know, take it slow, and you know, I definitely will end up making a magic finder as always, because there's probably new strats to explore there. But as far as a league start strat, I think this has kind of gotten me settled as to what I want to do and where we're gonna go. So yeah, you can look. I will try and do that leveling stream within the first like day or so of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so that you can see a leveling setup for it. I'm gonna like force the totems and everything as early as possible. So yeah, keep an eye out for the leveling video there. We'll have a more fleshed out POB and maybe some ideas of like some small details, things I missed here. But here's how you get a general idea of whatever you want, really, and then you can always go back to the search and tweak other parameters, see what's the most popular stuff. Obviously that which was taken was super popular. You might not even trust builds that didn't use it, because what else are you using besides that? And then Soul Mantle, stuff like that. Very interesting to see. Actually, what Forbidden Flame and Flesh were people using? I didn't see that. Little details like that. Inevitable Judgment, yep. Shouts to Inquisitor. Ritual of Awakening, see, I don't even know what that is. So that's a lot of cool stuff you could do here. Okay, video's too long. Thank you for watching if you did stay the whole time. I am very excited for the league as usual and for content to come. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.